Yeah, now we've also had a national head-to-head context. In the head-to-head sort of polling, it shows Trump leading still by just 1.3%, 47.5% to 46.2%. That margin has halved since Biden withdrew from the race. It's now very much in the margin of error. Will this continue, this trend continue as they introduce Kamala Harris to the American people? Or will we see a repeat, do you think, of her performance in 2020 when the more people saw of her, the less they seemed to like her in that primary contest?
I think they saw a very different Kamala Harris 4 years ago, and it seems like an awful long time ago. She's also running in a very different race right now. She is the nominee for the Democratic Party for President of the United States. It's a very, very different position than when she was running as one of many in the 2020 primaries. So my sense is both her appeal and the campaign that she's going to run are going to be very different from what everyone's comparing her to 4 years ago.
Yeah, and Larry, is the Trump campaign making a mistake here, by the way, that they're getting focused on issues like Kamala Harris's racial heritage and things like this? Because it seems like ever since they've made the shift on the Democrat side, the Trump side seems to have lost a bit of focus, and they aren't talking about the issues that they're really strong on, border, economy, crime, that sort of thing.
I've been surprised at how caught off guard they seem to have been with regard to their messaging. And we talked a little bit about that last time you and I spoke about messaging over the next few months. Look, I think the big issue is how do they return to something that they're strong on and that the Democrats are weak on or perceived to be weak amongst their base. And again, let's not forget, we're really talking about needing to swing a very small percentage of people in a very small number of states here in the United States.
Yeah. And so with that small constituency that you're talking about that really decides this, do you sense, as somebody who's been around a lot of campaigns, who's been doing this for decades, years, that they will be moved by people saying, and the Trump campaign and others reports saying, well, Kamala Harris used to be very far to the left here, and now she's moved to the right. Which Harris do you trust? Is there a sense of a trustworthiness issue that might be emerging with Kamala Harris as people see that she was much looser on border, on crime at certain points, even though she was a prosecutor, that sort of thing?
I think they've got to find an issue like that. Obviously, they zeroed in on President Biden's age and competency, and therefore his ability to run the country and the perception of the country being weak. I think they need to find an issue like you've just described, whether her trustworthiness is the ultimate issue. That's to be determined, but I don't think they've gotten to that point yet where they've gotten any traction on issues, because certainly going after what her race may or may not be, what her career path has been or privileged or not, isn't getting any traction. In fact, it seems to be motivating would-be Harris voters and probably turning off some people who are undecideds or maybe more traditional Republicans, if you will, from supporting Trump.
And finally, just quickly, what do you think about the issue of abortion and women's, sovereignty over their own bodies and so on, that the Democrats are making a very big issue about, Kamala Harris is making a big issue about? How much of that is going to play into the next few months? Because it seems to be they're gearing up a big fight around that.
Well, first of all, every time women's health issues, reproductive rights issues have been on the ballot, it favors Democrats, whether that's was in Ohio a couple of years ago, Michigan a couple of years ago. It always works well for Democrats. And I think we'll see the same thing over the next 90-something days. I think one of the strengths Vice President Harris brings to the campaign is this is an issue she can speak about, and she can speak about it more directly than President Biden was able to, who always seemed uncomfortable with the issue of abortion as a devout Catholic. And so she comes to this with her own convictions, with her own beliefs, with her own voice. And I think that voice is resonating with people and has since the Roe versus Wade was overturned 2 years ago.
Larry Grossman, it's going to be a fascinating 3 months or so ahead. Thank you so much for your time, Director of CT Group. Really appreciate it.